All right. Hey, everybody. This is Paula Richey with OtherRealm Studio. And today, or just right now, since I've gotten the audio figured out, I am, speaking of the audio, there, background music. I'm going to work on drawing a page from scratch. This is going to be a little tricky. I've always had a little bit of trouble talking and drawing at the same time. So that was why I went ahead and got the royalty-free tracks and paid for the rights to use them. In videos. Because while I always watch videos with the sound off on social media, that's not really how most people do things. So it's better to not have dead air when you've got when you're working with a media that allows for sound. And I have also found the playlist that I made. So I think this one has this one song, the variations of it. About 3 times. So I really ought to be using reference for this. But, well, I saw a deer outside my house today, so this is probably good enough. If it looks wonky when I'm done, I can go back later and correct it somewhat. What you're seeing right now is me recalling all the hours that I spent as a teenager drawing horses. Look, we make a leggy, coltish horse, and split the hooves. Make the neck a little narrower. And there we have a deer. So I may have made the head a little bit round. I've noticed that the deer around here have kind of wedge-shaped heads. So, a bit more like this. But it is kind of handy, just being able to look out the door or the window and see the released deer browsing around, doing the weed eating. Let's see. Wait. So there is still a little bit of a scoop right there. Alright, so step one, the sketch. Pretty much done. Trim up some of those shape lines a bit. It's a deer, so it doesn't need a mane. Sketch in some background. Okay. And now we will want to add another layer. So on one layer there will be background, and the deer, the main character, will be on a separate layer. That way, if I need to change up the composition, I'll be able to scoot the deer around separate from background, and I'll also be able to clip it out and use it in another part of the book if I need to. Let's see. I saw one of the fawn had a really cute and interesting pattern. Now, I've always wondered, how can Connie tell them all apart? But the more that I look at them, the more that I look at the deer, I realize that they really are uniquely marked. It's just, these are very subtle. Wow, even saved twice. These are very subtle variations, especially compared to horses. So, the little fawn that I saw had more of a gold tint. Where the light hit him, especially in his little points above his eyes. So let's do a bit of that. So it was in one of the videos. I'll have to look up which one it was again. But he had little, even though he was such a light colored fawn, he had little black dots above his eyes. Little dark tips on his ears. Maybe about there. So what I usually try to do is, after I get the sketch down, I rough in the colors. Let's see. And before I've covered up all my sketch, I do try to add in some shadows where I know that they'll be. Just so they don't get lost entirely before I finished painting. And I do make minor corrections all the time. I really try to treat it as much like paint, like real paint, as possible. But with the advantages, there are a lot of advantages. The chief advantage being that I don't have to leave this out to dry anywhere. I never run out of colors. My paint doesn't dry, and I never have to wash the brush. But maybe the best advantage is that I can have my coffee with me and I don't accidentally dip the paintbrush in it. So yeah, I really love digital media. Keeps me from getting myself in trouble. And you know, that's not all. There's a lot of other good things about it, like layers, being able to put everything on a transparent layer and add other ones as I need them. Being able to zoom in and work. Although that does get me in trouble occasionally. Sometimes I zoom in so close that I'm adjusting pixels that will never be visible in print. So that's kind of a bad habit. It's really hard to finish an entire book when you're drawing it pixel by pixel. Let's see. Oh, that's a good color. This will work. This will do what I wanted. It looked really orange over here on the palette. But over here next to the yellow and the brown, it just looks warm. coming to the edge of my drawing tablet. So I was getting a little less accurate. So as I'm painting and roughing in the colors, I'm trying to keep in mind several things actually. There's the muscles of the deer, the anatomy, the direction of the hair, okay, and the play of light. Against the shape and the texture, and of course where the light is also coming from. There's a lot to keep in mind. And I will come back in here with a blending tool and make some adjustments. See, the underside of the jaw needs to be darker for where it is. Well, let's see which of the blending tools looks appropriate. So this is going to give it a bit too blendy of a look. That's okay, because really at this stage it's just time to fill in all the little white patches. And you know, make the colors harmonize with each other a little bit better. So right here it's starting to look a little bit like a statue of a deer. And that's because primarily this is focusing on the shape of the light. Okay. But I'll go back in here again with the square-ended brush. And add in those strokes that make it look, you know, like an animal. The texture of the hair and stuff. Oops. And let's scroll down here and finish up the hooves. Mhm. Yeah, I know I should be narrating this, but really, what is there to say? I'm putting tiny highlights on the hooves because it bothers me if they look like they're blobs and they're not split for a good reason. And their little hooves are kind of shiny. I see prints all over the place out here. Frequently by the mailbox. I don't know if that's just where the dirt's soft or if they're checking my mail for me. But yeah, there's a few good spots to find deer prints in the yard. Tidy this up. Okay. So you can see that the sunlight is coming from, oh, let's see. It's probably hard to tell. You can see that the sunlight is coming from about here, right? And is reflecting off the deer's coat. Alright, undo that. I've been at this a while. Let's see. Yeah, I'm at the 35-minute, 36-minute mark. I need to turn in soon. I don't want to. I feel like I haven't gotten anywhere yet. Okay, so something interesting about eyes. You know, the large herbivores like deer, sheep, horses have a sort of oblong pupil. Now, it's a little more obvious in things like goats and sheep. But there's an interesting sort of split. A rectangular-ish blob. That forms the pupil. But with deer and most horses, unless they have blue eyes, and I'm not talking about you, kitty, their eyes are so dark that you really can't tell the shape of the pupil very much. Nope. So they have these big, dark, glossy, liquid eyes that are very beautiful. Nope. Okay. Smaller brush for eyelashes. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to see what this deer would look like with the little darker points above the eyes. So it's one of the fawns from this year. And I've seen a few wild ones out in the yard. This year's fawn, all covered with spots. It's actually, the one I saw had like unusually large spots relative to its size, I guess. And you know, usually they kind of have a few tidy rows of small spots. But this one looked like somebody had, splattered it with paint. It had very large, very dramatic spots. And I guess it's one of the grandbabies or descendants of some of the original deer that were rescued, rehabilitated, and released at Magnolia Fawn. You know, there's not a lot of really great places to put deer. I mean, you need to release them somewhere they will be allowed to be wild, and it's kind of disheartening to release them where they'll be hunted immediately. I guess part of being wild is also being hunted, but they still spend a few months learning, how far from humans they ought to be. I'm fairly happy with this face right here. So they're not released on, like, hunting land. It's not very sportsmanlike, y'all. But also, you don't want them released too close to housing developments, roads, reasons that they were orphaned in the first place. So it is a little tricky to find more locations to release deer so that they can gradually spread out and range as they're intended to. I mean, it's illegal to keep them as pets. It's illegal to cross state lines with them. There's all kinds of regulations and rules that have to be followed if you want to rehabilitate them and release them. And there's even more. If they're non-releasable, like they won't have a good chance out in the wild. Which is why Connie has a sanctuary. So she gets a permit for all the ones that end up having some kind of health complication that leads to them having poor prospects out in the wild. She tries to release as many as possible, but there's no telling what kind of weird health thing they might end up with. The piebalgs typically have dwarfism and leg deformities, and potentially internal issues as well. Some of them have weird neurological disorders, like the fainting fawn. Just like sometimes goats, or there's a specific breed of goat actually that will faint. There's one of these deer that will faint. When he gets overexcited, I guess. And that wouldn't be good if he fainted and fell into a creek and wasn't able to get himself out of it or something like that. Or just wandered out in the middle of a road and freaked out and fainted. So he's not releasable. Also, sometimes, even if they're healed from specific health issues, if they get handled too much during that process, then they imprint on people and are then unreleasable again. Which is really what happens with the piebalgs, because they require so much care to straighten out their little legs and so much monitoring to make sure they're okay, that they usually end up imprinting on people somewhat. And then you have the ones that were confiscated or found abandoned, that people had found as fawn out in the woods, figured they were alone, tried to do a good thing and rescue them, but then they ended up imprinted on humans. So there's deer that think that they're dogs or children, or that their herd is among people. And so you try to So people would try to raise the deer, and then when it's grown, they turn it loose because they're not allowed to keep it, of course. And the deer does not understand. So he's going to do his best to find a herd again. He doesn't understand how deer are supposed to act. All he knows are kids and dogs and you know, the nice people who raised it and fed it snacks and played with it. And he's grown up now and he's playing deer games, which involve a lot of stomping and kicking and rearing up. And he's not going to understand that that's the reason why he can't stay with the nice people, that he's now become a danger. So there have been a couple of deer earlier this year that, you know, just walk up to people. Little yearling bucks that were evidently raised by people. And they were turned loose and they didn't understand how to take care of themselves in the wild. They didn't have the foraging habits that would enable them to thrive. They were, you know, getting skinny and picking up parasites. And so when Connie went out there to see about these calls of nuisance deer that were wandering up to people, they came running right up to her, begging for treats, begging for care. You know, because they've been raised as pets, and it's not in them to be pets. You know, all the behaviors of wild deer haven't been bred out of them. But also what they've learned of people is incompatible with how a wild deer ought to live. And it's just really kind of sad. You know, it was a good effort. It really is very difficult to raise deer. You know, they'll die at the drop of a hat, really. Oh, that was too late for that. Okay, come on, finish saving. There you go. So yeah, you get these nuisance deer, and they can't be pets, and they can't be left out in the wild either, because they'll continue to seek out people. And so, whenever Connie finds them and can get get them sedated and in the car, she'll take them back to the sanctuary, and they can live for the rest of their lives with the rest of the herd of, former pets and deer that just couldn't quite adjust to being wild. For whatever reason. Okay. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of an awkward angle. So, y'all aren't going to be able to see this, but I am turning my drawing tablet so I can draw on it sideways. And get less of the scribbly stuff going on. Yeah, there's just some directions that my hand does not wish to turn. It was very nice that my husband got me a drawing tablet that's a screen also. So that I can see what I'm doing at times like this and I don't get confused by looking up at the computer screen expecting the direction of my brush strokes to be different. And I did get pretty good at not having to look at my hand as I draw. This is a skill that I developed in college. And if you're going to be a digital artist, you might have seen a Wacom or something like that without an actual lit up screen to draw on, and you might be wondering, how can people draw on that? Well, you can practice. You can draw on regular paper and try to draw something that's in front of you without ever looking down at your paper, and eventually your hand-eye coordination will improve to the point where it will know what to do without you constantly watching it. Let's see. That might be a little bit hard. So I'll use the blending tool on this a little bit. But yeah, the only thing is, if your tablet needs to be oriented in a slightly different direction than the computer monitor, then you're really going to want a tablet that you can look at and see what you're doing. Oh wow, I've gone over an hour. On just this one deer. Alright, well, let's hit screen, see how it looks. There she is. I'm kind of proud of that one. A lot of the other deer that I've illustrated up until this page have been very dark, but I wanted to do more of the variation in colors that they have. Let's see, I should also put a little fawn in here. I think that would look nice. Alright, that's got to be enough for tonight. I'll see y'all later. Bye.